an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece episodes 558 through 560. The Noah closing in, the Fishman Island facing destruction. Hurry up, Luffy, Shirahoshi's life in jeopardy, and the fierce fight begins. Luffy versus Hordy. In these episodes, we are finally getting a Luffy versus Hordy fight. It is kind of amusing to me how often Luffy is just like, okay, that one had to put him down. And then Hordy gets up again and Luffy's like, you know what? I'm kind of impressed. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. Florian is also here in the chat having dinner. Appreciate you very much. Oh, no, Natasha. You fibbed. This is Michael commissioning this episode. Thank you, Michael. Your girl is usually, she's like been getting better about checking, but I thought I had and I hadn't. So yeah, thank you, Michael, and apologies for doing that all the time. I appreciate you being a good sport about it. Hopefully. I actually don't know that, but I hope. So these episodes, y'all, are a real, like, kind of weird mishmash. I feel like I think that the issue for me with this arc, I've already talked about my feelings about Hordy as a villain and everything, but everybody being together, it's so funny after sort of, like, a little bit mocking, but in a well-intentioned way, of how our team usually always splits up and they each deal with the baddies and then we get back together again and eventually we are all fighting on the, I think that I can understand why it's done that way when everyone is together and everybody's sort of trying, or not everybody, but a lot of our friends are trying to get in on sort of the same fight. It is a little bit confusing. And also this thing with the Noah getting added into the mix. I don't know, guys, if there was something that was said about, like, explicitly why the Noah is so important. I know that it's like, it's so huge that it could destroy the island. I know that when the king is talking about it, he is very much going in the, like, we will all be ruined if something happens to the ship itself. But I can't recall, and help me out here if I should recall, if we are meant to know specifically what the deal is with it and why it's so, like, delicate, or not even delicate, but why it's so crucial. I feel as if what we're doing here is, okay, we're not going to give you that information. You just need to know that it's, like, high stakes, and then later we will give you the full story about it. I feel like that's what we're doing, but there's something about how it's being talked about that has me sort of second guessing whether or not that's actually the case. So apologies to everybody out there if you're like, yeah, Natasha, this has been talked about, because I'm doing my best, but I am not always completely on it. That just happens sometimes. So this is when we start this episode, I just have to talk really quickly. This is not like a big deal, but I know that you guys understand me. Surume, the Kraken, eventually in a later episode, I think it's like the third of the three, he gets punched by that strange little underwater man, giant. And it's because the giant took like a fucking energy steroid pill. I really had thought that the pill wouldn't do anything. Because, like, in life, body weight and the efficacy of medication often go together. And if you have a certain body weight, they adjust what your dosage will be. And when he takes that pill, it is so teeny tiny that I really was like, okay, maybe it's just not going to do anything. And maybe that will lead to him taking a handful or something and overdoing it, you know? But no, it just does the thing that it does for everybody, which actually is kind of impressive. Okay, Florian says, not really. They've said that Noah is important, but not more than that, though. Thank you. I hate that feeling of like, am I letting listeners down because I am not paying close enough attention to have caught something that's actually really important? I mean, sure, that happens, but this was one where I was like, I really feel like it seems like I should know this. But yeah, evidently not. So the ship itself is like very covered in moss and everything. There's a sort of sensation when I look at it that this has been buried. I don't feel like that really works for under the sea, but that's what I would think if I saw this thing in person. And there's a point when, and I'm a little bit confused about this as well, so I'm going to ask you, Florian, since you're here. We see the ship, like, you know, the hull of it thrusting up into, I keep wanting to say into the air, but it's not. But you know what I'm saying. The sky, I guess. And then we see a couple of other very small bubbles with teeny little, like, communities inside them. I don't remember seeing other separate bubbles like this. Other than, I guess, the bubble for the palace. Is this... Have we seen that there are separate sort of areas like this before? And of course, you know, in comparison to Noah, they are absolutely minuscule. They look like the heads of pins, you know. And the way that Noah is beginning to move, it's pressing into the huge bubble that surrounds Fishman Island. And because of the nature of these sort of coatings, they can take a decent amount of broad pressure, but when it's a sharp, localized sort of pressure, like a spear thrust versus getting slapped by a hand, it will break the bubble. So those, like, the concern here is, all right, it's just scraping up against us and maybe it's going to leave us alone, but if it gets redirected in a different way, this is going to pop and completely destroy the island. And the prince, and this made me feel a little bit better while I was watching, I will say, but I also was still sort of like, maybe I'm supposed to know something the prince doesn't know. But the prince is like, Dad, why are you freaking out so much about this ship? It looks like it's busted, and it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on today. So why are you so flipped out over it? And he says, Son, until the intended day, that vessel was not to be moved from its resting place. Now, I'm going to, like, hazard a guess here. It's sort of a weird thing because, like, obviously, the ship being called Noah calls to mind the biblical story of Noah. And I think that is, like, partially on theme for what my theory is. I'm sort of thinking we're going to find out that this ship was meant to be what carries the fishmen up into the surface world, and that it's going to be like part of the overall dream of hopefully someday we can actually go and live among the fishmen or among the humans. But I'm not sure if, like, because the fact that that he calls it a, quote, resting place, that's the only thing that sort of has me second guessing myself. Resting place usually implies that something has been put there after it has been used up, you know? So I was like, wait, is this supposed to have been maybe the ship that brought us down to Fishman Island, and we buried it in the event that maybe eventually we would need it again. So I don't really like feel particularly attached to any of these theories, but I do look forward to finding out exactly what it is that we're using the name Noah for, because like I just find it really kind of interesting. This is just on a personal level, that the way that translation works, some things can be said in like used as a name in this show in a way that I'm like, that's not really the way you would do that, you know? But I have total confidence that Americans also do that to literally every other language. So I'm not faulting anybody for that. It's just sort of the way that the, what do you call it, language barriers can happen. Oh my God. Florian says, well, what else would he call it? A parking spot? I guess that's true. Resting place probably is better. I'm trying to think, like, yeah, you could say assigned location, but that feels very, I don't know, almost military somehow. So yeah, that doesn't really work. That's fair. So yeah, the fact that the prince doesn't even know does help a bit. So we go back to Luffy, who is standing over, and it took me a second, you guys, because he's standing over this spot and there's all this like smoke and steam coming out. And for a second I was sort of like, wait, what's going on here? And it's pretty quickly we see that this is the hole made from Hordy being punched into the ground. I was so delighted that that was what this was, that he has been fucked up so bad that it's a literal smoking crater. Amazing. And all of his people are surrounding him and just kind of going, hey, boss, everything good? Yeah, I really thought that you were going to be able to stand up against this guy after you took that fucking, those, you know, steroids, that nothing would be able to hold you back. And it's really actually kind of surprising to me that he does get up with no problem a moment later, because I had thought the way that he went down seemed somewhat final. I'm not mad about it at all. I actually really like the fact that he didn't go down that easily, but I won't lie and pretend that I didn't have a moment of like, oh, wow, okay. Like I was just as surprised as Luffy was, really. And yeah, when Luffy gets up, or when he gets up, Luffy is just like, huh, wow, you're tougher than I thought. And he keeps saying that this dude is tougher than he thought. And I know that probably like that is meant, it's not meant as a compliment. I don't think Luffy's meaning to compliment him. It's like a lot of the time I kind of enjoy when a villain, when this is sort of flipped around, when like a villain gives the hero a compliment and is like, you know what? I thought I was going to have an easy time taking care of you. And here you still are putting up a fight. And actually that is sort of impressive. But when it's coming from Luffy, it's not like, it doesn't have the same tone. Somebody doing this to your protagonist, a villain, it always feels like, well, they're just trying to be dismissive here, right? They're just trying to be sort of patronizing. But Luffy isn't ever attempting to do a sort of doublespeak. Luffy says just exactly what he means to say. So this moment of just like, huh, I really thought that'd be done, that'd be it, and that you'd be done. He just straight up thought this dude looked like he wasn't shit. That's the way it sounds to me. So it's not really a compliment. It's more like an attack on the image that this man is giving off. So anyway, yeah, he is coming at him, and it's just so funny because he's really like, there is a sense once they're in the water, yeah, Hordy is absolutely right to feel as superior to Luffy as he feels. But in this moment, he is trying to punch him, and it's this amazing image because it looks like Luffy's head is gone for a second. And, 1 second later, I was very much like, yeah, okay, it's just his rubber neck. His head is like just stretched backwards. And indeed, we do find that out. But for a moment, I was like, wow, is this a new power? Can Luffy do like a Buggy the Clown and just attach his head? And Luffy says, you forgot that I'm rubber. That kind of punch wouldn't do anything to me, especially since it's so weak. And you're nothing compared to Jinbei. And I thought we were going to get Jinbei kind of being like, aw, shucks. Like, oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Like just a sort of silly. And instead, Jinbei just turns to him and says, of course not. He's relying on a drug. That's not his actual strength. And I was so here for Jinbei being that dismissive and just like, ew, no, of course he can't like hold a candle to me. Love it, Jinbei. I love this energy from you and you just being so contemptuous and taking it completely for granted. I don't think that this is supposed to be like, really a marker of his self-confidence. I think it's meant to just be showing his disdain for the way that Hordy operates, and that's completely fine. But I did enjoy seeing how, like, he seemed to react to Luffy here. And also, like, he says he's relying on that rather than trying to improve. And I think that's really the thing. And I was talking about this with Rashawn a few days ago because, I am not a perfect person in any sense. But I also am pretty aware of a lot of my shortcomings. And I feel like I am often just working to try and improve. And I can forgive when people aren't perfect, but I want to feel like they are trying to be better than they are, because if they are just sort of using the fact that, well, nobody's perfect to sort of cover the fact that they aren't even attempting to be better, I really lose a lot of respect for them. And this is something that, like, I wish I had understood a little bit better when I was younger and dating, because this is a thing that a lot of guys would pull was, well, I'm just kind of an asshole. They would say it like while you were first dating them as if it were self-deprecating. But then later on in the relationship, you would get into a fight over something that this dude did, and he would try and act like, well, you knew what you were getting into with me because I already told you that I'm an asshole, so what did you expect? And they would act as if like, well, since I already confessed that I am, that's pretty much a get out of jail free card, and I no longer need to be worried about the consequences of my actions because all of it has already been disclaimed by me saying this thing, and therefore you have no right to have any expectations of me. And I'll tell you what, guys, that is such an immature approach. It's so pitiful, and it's also so cowardly and just so gross that I really am ashamed at the fact that I was like taken in by that as much as I was, as many times as I was. It's embarrassing. So anyway, I know that that's like a weird sort of tangent to go on at this point, but it's just the fact that Jinbei's contempt I wanted to kind of correct what I said, because I acted like Jinbei was saying like, oh, well, he doesn't have the strength. Like that was what he was taking issue with. But really Jinbei is like, oh, he isn't even trying. He's not attempting to be better. He's just relying on something to do the work for him. And that seems to be really the thing that he finds he treats it with a great deal of disdain. So then Luffy is like, all right, well, time to use hard-headed, I think is what he says. I'm trying to get it. My thing is frozen. I'm sorry, guys. Something's going on with my my computer today, and it is like kind of running a little slow. But he says like hard-headed, and there's like a patch in the center of his forehead that seems to turn to metal. And I thought that this was going to turn out to be something that kind of makes his head into a hammer. I really don't know how else to say that. Like, and instead it's, his whole body can seem to turn into metal. And he says, a second later, he says armament hardening, which I think is meant to be a bit of a pun because it's his arm that is hardening at the moment. This is like a completely new trick. And I really do kind of wish that we had gotten to see this development with him. I know I feel as if in a lot of ways we actually got to see more of everybody else's training than of Luffy's. And I don't know if I'm alone in this. Maybe it would just have, like, if we did see it, maybe I wouldn't have been totally satisfied with it. But I did sort of feel like, okay, you're just really like pulling this out of nowhere now. And I wasn't sure if I really liked that. I want him to be able to do new things, but it's one thing to do versions of the things that he's always been able to do. And it's another thing to really have a completely new skill set. And turning his body to what seems like metal, I don't understand how that goes with any of his abilities at all. Like, first and second gear are, or what? Second and third gear. Because his regular power is meant to be first gear, right? I can't remember which one it is that's sort of like, it seems like he turns into a water bottle and it's steaming up behind him. But that at least felt like it went with the rubber power. And then, what was the other one? When he just has like incredible force behind his punches, right? And he is able to like bust down a huge door. And I think that I saw that as just increasing the velocity of the punch somehow. So it's not exactly like the strength is coming from nowhere. It's the same fist and the same matter, but it's just that he is like leveraging that differently. And so I was willing to just take that one also in stride. This feels like a really, really different ability that I can't. Okay, Florian is saying, okay, this is weird. This is armament hockey. The hockey that can even hurt devil fruit users. People have used it before, like Rayleigh and Garp, but why was it not black? It's a, I think, distinct choice to show it, because in real One Piece world, you would not be able to see it. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, like, it's not necessarily that he's turning to metal, like, literally, like, his substance, but that we as viewers are being shown the equivalent of what, like, how hard he's turned. That's just, every time I'm saying this, I just feel like I'm being really dirty, but you know what I'm saying. I see what you mean. It's just meant to be sort of illustrative for us, but it's not literally happening. Okay. And that being like a hockey method, I don't remember Rayleigh and Garp using it, but they have done so many crazy things that I really don't keep track of. So I believe you. But yeah, so this is another ability that he is just able to use here, and he decks Hordy with it, and Hordy again goes down, and it's looking like, okay, that did something. But Luffy is just standing there when Hordy gets back up, and Hordy starts doing the equivalent of like a machine gun fire that's just raining down on him with those drops of water that he uses like bullets. And Luffy is just somehow avoiding them. And it's, I think, meant to be that he has the awareness of his surroundings, that he can feel where all the drops are. The thing that's like kind of not fully ringing true for me here is that the principle behind moving out of the way is that you have a space without a bullet coming at you to move into. And he doesn't. His whole area is just covered in these, like, I'm keep using the word bullets because saying drops or raindrops, it doesn't sound at all intimidating. So there really doesn't look like there is space for him to move into. If he were making himself really skinny, rubbery, and like wiggling because he was rubber and managing to dodge them that way, it would feel a lot more believable to me because he was reducing the surface area that there was possible to hit. But he's not doing that. He's just sort of like vaguely standing in place and waving around. And it didn't look for me at all like he was not going to get hit. So I accepted it because I meant to, but I really didn't feel like the way it was done worked for me. And then he says that he's done dancing around and he comes and punches Hordy again. And that punch sends Hordy flying what looks to be about 600 feet into the side of a building, basically. Like, he is in the air. And all of his guys are watching this and basically, like, I kept thinking about that meme where it's a gif of, like, a guy who's falling across the screen holding his face as a bunch of other guys are just going, oh shit, behind him. Like somebody just did the most sick burn you've ever heard and everybody is reacting to it. So I kind of felt for Hordy because I was like, yeah, bro, you are losing a lot of face here. Like, this is not, you're supposed to be inspiring your men. Already, I'm kind of like side-eyeing him because he is taking all of these pills and everybody around him had been warning him. But it seems to have like kind of worked out for him. I just feel like this has to be a temporary effect, you know? So I just don't think Hordy is being a great leader here. Oh God, I'm sorry guys. Hulu has just like completely shit out and I'm looking at it and it just says, we're having trouble playing this. And it's giving me like an error symbol. Ugh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to talk about it as I go through the episode, as I always do. So it's difficult for me to go beat by beat if I can't see what's happening right in front of me, especially because the show kind of like jumps between people so often and stretches things out so much that I will think something happened a lot earlier than it did because I sort of like skim over all of the build up to that moment, you know? Yeah, I'm going to try and reopen this, but sorry guys, I don't know what's going on. My computer doesn't usually give me this kind of problem lately after I reset it. And I don't love that this is happening. I'm sort of wondering if it would be better if I played it on my phone here instead. It's just a little bit less elegant. So, like, I'm gonna just sort of jump over here because, like, the fight between Luffy and Hordy is really just Luffy absolutely poning Hordy until they are underwater. I want to talk about what's going on with Vanderdecken and the fact that evidently he's responsible for the Noah and the fact that it has moved from wherever it was being kept. I am not sure if it's supposed to be that, like, he knows how precious the Noah is to all of them, and if he is meant to be sort of displaying a complete lack of respect for something that everybody else feels is really meaningful, or if it's like that he just knows it's a big ship and that he wants to use something large enough to do the damage that he's looking for. And he just picked this because he is aware of it and he knows it'll be a great weapon to accomplish what he wants to accomplish, but that he doesn't really have the context for it. And I think that part of my confusion on this is that I can't understand what Vanderdecken is supposed to be. I think he is supposed to be a fish-man with legs that are sort of crab-like, with him having like how many is it? 4 sets of legs? Is it, I mean, not 4 sets, 4 legs? Or does he have 6? His overall look is much less fish-like than almost any of the other fishmen that we have seen. Part of that is just his, like, facial hair. And there's a flatness to the way he's animated that is really different than a lot of other characters. He looks much more two-dimensional than they have. So it's sort of like, I don't really know where he fits into everything, because the way that Hordy talks about him is not like Vanderdecken is a fishman himself who is invested in the cause. It's like Hordy has aligned himself with somebody outside of the fishmen to accomplish a goal, and that a lot of people sort of are looking down on that, or just have feelings about it. Maybe not looking down on it, but it almost feels like Hordy is planning to make use of him while he can and then completely sever ties. Florian says, we've seen Van like 3 episodes ago. He does this because if he can't get Shirahoshi, everything should be destroyed. No. Florian, I get why he's doing this. I'm talking about, like, Vanderdecken's understanding of the significance of using the Noah to destroy everything. Is he doing it because he just knows that there's a huge ship and that's big enough to do the job? Is it supposed to be a combination of, like, this ship is super meaningful and he knows that, and he is being super disrespectful and doesn't care because that's just how bad a man he is? Or, and part of my confusion is because I don't know if he is a fishman, and I don't know if he would know the significance of what the Noah is, because the prince himself doesn't know. And therefore, I feel like it has to be either like a secret or maybe a sort of like local legend or something. I can't tell, because some of the other townsfolk, fish folk, react to seeing the Noah as if they do understand how significant it is. So I hesitate to say that it's a secret if other regular people know about it, but maybe it's just a sort of legend and they have that vague understanding, but they don't really know the details about it. Oh, okay. Florian is saying he is a fishman, Japanese bullhead shark. All right, I'm so sorry, guys, but I am looking this up right now. Japanese bullhead shark, because I'm just curious. All right. It looks a lot like a tiger shark, actually. It's got that striping and everything, which maybe that's supposed to be what his mustache is. It's maybe not meant to be like actual hair, but like just the striping striation on his face. I don't really understand where the 4 legs are coming from, but it doesn't really matter. I like to have the clarification that he is a fish man. And they are, they're kind of cute, actually. They don't look like they're too big. But they're pretty cool looking. I think that, like, marine life is so wild. It varies between, like, this is really pretty to this is a horror unknown to man and our eyes should not behold it. There are so many things that I'm just like, I would love to not ever see that again, and I would not mind if I could go back and not have seen it now either. So this is when a lot of people are starting to, like, see or, like, realize that Vanderdecken is behind this. One of the guys is just like, I was just wondering, Hordy, is this part of your big plan? Because, you know, if Vanderdecken's doing this, and he's like, because Vanderdecken's, you know, your partner, and Hordy just tells this guy to shut the fuck up, basically. But later on, what Hordy does, he comes to the conclusion, rightfully, that if Vanderdecken has decided he's going to do something this destructive, then why am I allied with him? He doesn't give a shit about what I'm doing. He's about to completely ruin everything, including killing me. So, yeah, I'm going to go and deal with this motherfucker. And Vanderdecken really seems to not see this coming. I don't know what gave him the confidence to really think that Hordy isn't going to fight back after seeing this thing hurtling towards the island that he was intent on taking over. I don't think it's meant to be that Vanderdecken gives much of anything serious thought. He just doesn't seem like a guy who has a big picture point of view. But yeah, this dude is like genuinely taken by surprise when Hordy comes up to him and basically just spears him in the gut. And the whole way that things go, eventually there's like I touched you with my left hand, and so now I have a lock on you as a target. And he's like feeling like, okay, well, yeah, you got me, but I am going to get you back before the end. And I was like, unclear. I think what it's meant to be is that Hordy just lets the axe come so close before he moves that it passes right by him and gets Hordy instead. I almost was like, did he just have Hordy touch himself with his left hand? Is that what he did? So I'm going to go back and look at that if Hulu will let me. But I was just kind of gratified to have Hordy handling Vanderdecken because, frankly, Vanderdecken is like at the level for me of Sanji at this point, where everything about you is incredibly creepy and uncomfortable and just kind of stale. Like, oh, he's just so obsessed with a woman, he's going to kill a bunch of people over her. You know, like, it's just, this is just like the world. I'm not excited by this kind of plot development. And Shirahoshi, for her part, is out here just being a complete bamf, because what she does is she gets up off the island and is using herself to draw the ship away so that it will come at her instead of killing everybody else, which is a really selfless act. And it's so funny because, like, the poor Kraken is supposed to be looking after her, and he looks down and realizes that she's gone and is like, wait, what? And I was like, Kraken, I have been out here defending you left and right. You have got to keep your eye a little bit more on the ball, my friend. I'm so sorry to be the one to, like, shame you for this, but come on. So this is when all of the fishmen, like, look up and realize that Hordy is on the train and that or the chain of the Noah, and that he's going up there. And they think, I believe, that he is doing this to, like, I don't know if they still realize that he is not in on this plan. I kind of feel like the way they're talking makes it sound like, oh, okay, he's going up there to handle the situation. And he is, but not like the Noah part. He's handling the Vanderdecken part. So as he goes up there, Luffy is watching and is like, well, I have to go and deal with this dude, but I don't know whether or not being a devil fruit eater is going to impact how I can fight, because he can't swim in the water, but the thing is coated. But it's also like, what if you get knocked off of it and you are just in the water? So eventually Jinbei gives him one of those, like, coral things that will blow a bubble of coating around him. And it works for a while. He makes that, like, bubble. But eventually Hordy has caught up with him and seems to catch Luffy totally off guard. And really, Hordy is like, you fucking humans really, like, think that you can compare to us, but the only, like, advantage that you ever really have is sometimes on land. In the water, it's no contest, and you are about to see just how outclassed you are. And he is correct. That is, like, it's distressing to see Luffy so vulnerable in the water and just falling like a fucking stone. It's not just the fact that Luffy can't swim. It's the fact that it seems like when the water touches him, he almost goes unconscious. So his eyes get this weird look to them, and it's just really upsetting. And I forgot that Hordy calls Vanderdecken... oh no, he's talking to the other fishmen, my bad. I thought he was calling Vanderdecken sentimental. But no, he's talking to a bunch of fishmen who are trying to stop him and calling them sentimental because they're trying to fight for their princess and because they don't have the pride that they should in their race. They're race traitors. That's really what it comes down to here. So Luffy's attempts to fight him, like he's punching, and I kept thinking that was going to break the bubble, and it doesn't. He punches and the bubble continues to coat his arm as he's punching. So that really was like, oh, I didn't think that was going to be how this functioned, because I would have thought like just a fist is localized enough, but evidently not. So Hordy gets to a point where Luffy is just falling through the water, and he throws a trident after him. And one of the princes swoops in, knocks the trident away, and saves Luffy. Meanwhile, the other two princes are going and defending Shirahoshi from Vanderdecken in the cutest little... I love these two brothers. They've got such a spot in my heart now. They are so loyal, and they are so, just absolutely standing on business, as Rashawn would say, with no hesitation. And really feel like this is our job. Of course we're doing the right thing. Vanderdecken, meanwhile, is like, well, you're never going to escape from me. I'm going to chase you as long as I have to. He calls her his beautiful bride, and I was just like, sir, every woman in the world begs you to get a grip. But, so, let's see. I'm trying to find the spot. Oh, right. Jinbei had told Luffy that, I think it's Vanderdecken is also, because he has that. Yeah. I keep forgetting that Vanderdecken's ability is a devil fruit power. And I keep thinking that it's like something that he's able to do as a fishman, but he also has this weakness to seawater. So it's possible that if you can just get him into the water as well, he will be at a massive disadvantage. I just don't know how you do that when you yourself have that weakness, and pull him into it without getting pulled into it yourself. So then we have Luffy being carried away on the back of the prince, who is just lamenting that he's failed his mother. And he apologizes to Luffy for being suspicious of him in the whole thing to begin with. And Luffy is just like, hey, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. So as he's swimming away, Hordy is like, you know what? I need to deal with this Vanderdecken problem. I can go ahead and kill Luffy at any point, but this ship issue is really time sensitive, so I'm going to go ahead and handle that first. And this is when we have him stabbing Vanderdecken through the gut. Vanderdecken being genuinely like, wait, what? And the episode ends there, and I should have known that on this show, just being stabbed through the gut isn't the end of a character the way that it would be in real life. So he gets stabbed, but then there's still fight in him, and he just backs away and tells Hordy, you've made a terrible mistake because I've just touched you with my left hand. And when he says that, I kind of expected Hordy to have more of a reaction, but his expression doesn't change at all. He doesn't seem one bit concerned. And he says, I was a bit nervous when I saw the shadow of this boat, but after I thought about it, breaking the bubble didn't seem like such a bad idea. Fishman Island would be wiped out, but we'd still have the Fishman District. And if you die here and now, then your Mark powers will deactivate. Then the ship will come crashing down right onto that useless kingdom. And I was a little confused by this. He says we'll still have the district. I don't think I understand the difference between the island and the district. Is the district like including those smaller bubbles that we saw? Is that kind of what he means? That, they're not part of the island, but they are near enough that people are still like kind of part of the community, I guess? I don't know. But I just didn't feel like the district thing was made very clear in the animation. So it felt like we were sort of pulling this out of nowhere. So anyway, he's making this whole speech while the axe that Vanderdecken has thrown circles around them. And Vanderdecken is just like, oh, well, if thousands are going to die, I actually like that. How about we start with you? And a couple spikes come out of his feet. I don't know how this works because he's wearing sandals, but whatever. And he goes to kick Hordy in the face, and Hordy just bites his leg like he's a fucking shark. And then he says, "What are you doing? Stop it." And as he is like kind of falling backward in shock, the axe comes at him, and I think it's just meant to be Hordy pulls him into its path. Because I thought for a second that he sort of touched himself. There's a way that he's like standing, and I was like, oh, did he mark himself by accident? I don't even know if that can happen, But the axe passes right through him, and I have to think that Vanderdecken is basically dead because the axe stops chasing Hordy. It goes and lands in it sticks in like a part of the ship, I think, and it doesn't continue trying to search for him. So Vanderdecken, he like falls toward the ship because the ship is like, vertical, the way that the Titanic, when it was sinking, began. And he falls down the deck toward like the center where the building in the middle of the ship is. I'm sure there's like ship names for all of this stuff, but I don't know them, so I'm not sorry. And he crashes, and there's just a bunch of smoke, and it's like, I think I'm meant to think that he is dead, but nobody dies really usually in this show. So I don't know, like, it feels like if the axe stops coming for Hordy, that should be open and shut, Vanderdecken is dead. But I have a feeling he isn't dead, and that I'm going to be irritated with the fact that this axe isn't hunting for him anymore, because that doesn't really make sense. But, what can you do? So Hordy at this point is like, it's fine. Now the ship is going to begin to crash toward the island. It is sort of funny to me that, like, he was mad at Vanderdecken for setting this up. You're going to ruin all my work. And then he's like, I'm going to come and kill you. But then he changes his mind and he's like, actually, I kind of like this plan, but I'm going to kill you anyway. It's all very, very inconsistent. Florian is saying the district is at the actual seafloor and they're the slums. We've seen it with Hordy in the beginning and in the flashback. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. So here's the princes, like, they are, as I said, standing on business, going up against Hordy, who is trying to target Shirahoshi. There's a line about how, like, I'm going to really get one over on Vanderdecken and also kill the princess. And I was like, that doesn't make sense either. Going after her when Vanderdecken seems to be taken care of, I think it's just meant to be like I'm handling some royalty, and she is somebody that I wanted off the playing field. But I they don't say it like that. They talk about it, or he talks about it as if it's to do with Vanderdecken. And I was like, why can't you just say that he wants to take her down because he's just been wanting to do that? So he swims after her, and he grabs her by the hair and stops her. And apparently, like, as a mermaid, she's supposed to be one of the world's fastest swimmers, but he can outswim her because he is, on this drug. So he's holding her by the hair, and her brothers are like coming up behind them to take care of this guy. And then you hear her yell for Luffy, and all of a sudden he is there with, like, on the back of the prince who is carrying him and sort of making this attack possible. And he says, "Gum Gum Snake Shot." And his hand comes out, grabs onto Hordy's, like, chest, and then it seems electrocutes him and causes Hordy to have to let go of the princess's hair. And that is a real brand new power, and that is called Gum Gum Snake Shot. So that feels like it has to be, I don't know if it's electricity, but because Luffy's been immune to electricity in the past, that feels like it doesn't really make sense. I don't know. But Hordy clearly was not expecting him to be able to do anything like that. He's very irritated. I love the look that Luffy has on his face when he's looking at him. Then we go back down to the plaza where this weird sea giant is crying about how Vanderdecken doesn't give a shit about him. Vanderdecken had said something about how, you're one more thing I have to sacrifice just to get to Shirahoshi. That's the way it goes. He says, like, them's the breaks. And he starts crying, and the teardrops when they fall are enough to, like, flatten people. So this is when we have him taking the energy pill and decking this poor defenseless, not really, Kraken. And I don't like this fucking sea giant to begin with. I don't like the design of him. I don't like that his voice is so similar to Chopper's. It's clearly like the same voice actress. And it just feels like I just keep getting sort of tricked and thinking Chopper's talking. So I don't like that. And then when he takes the pill, he's even uglier than he was before. And I was like, ew, come on. I don't want to look at this thing anymore. So him punching the Kraken on top of everything, I was just like, you know what? Fuck this guy. And I feel a little bit bad because there's a real sense for me that this giant doesn't really have it together. Like, he seems to really feel like a child who doesn't fully understand what it is that he's doing. So I don't think I should blame him, but I am. So then let's go to our favorite drunk octopus. I don't recall this guy's name, but he is over here chugging booze and eating these steroids like they're fucking popcorn. And he falls backward, and all of the other pirates are just like, what the fuck is the deal with this guy? And he begins to transform. He eventually has the same thing happen with him that happened with Hordy. His hair goes white and he just gets really huge. But he is not an advantage as an officer because your boy doesn't care who he attacks. He is just going after anyone around him because he just likes to cut things up. So it doesn't feel for me like this is really what we wanted. And I really believe people should have taken those drugs away from him and out of his hands. But because he has so many arms as this octopus, he can really keep people away from him pretty easily. So yeah, that's what's going on with him, and he's terrorizing like his own team. Then we have this guy who's got a sort of sickle-shaped sword, and he is about to fight Zoro, and really is like thinking he can beat Zoro. He has no idea who he's dealing with. And I love the fact that he does something. He's got that thing in front of his head that those fish that are really terrifying have that glows in the dark and sort of provides enough light for them to see by. Anglerfish, I think they're called. So he has one of those like dangling in front of him, and the light is so bright that it's blinding. And he thinks, now you won't be able to see my attacks coming because you're blinded. To which Zoro says, you only see with your eyes? What kind of fucking swordsman are you? And when this dude straightens up, the light in front of his head has been sliced off. It's just like, it's almost like it was an actual glass light bulb and Zoro sheared through it because there's like half of it is still there. This dude is still trying to say, you just got lucky that time. Oh my God, I had forgotten about this fucking chameleon guy, the stripey guy, who tries to tell this poor giant that, oh, you just misheard Vanderdecken, and he makes up a bunch of stuff. This dude he just looks so intimidating and serious, and then everything that comes out of his mouth is so fucking goofy. I actually really enjoy that. I think that might be like one of my favorite things about this arc is how unexpected the whole attitude of this character turned out to be. So then we have like the amazing moment of giant hands like just swatting people out of the way when Robin is using her power. The octopus starts to come up behind her and take her off guard, but Zoro jumps in and handles it. And I think that Nami gets knocked down or something, because eventually she stands up and she's like, now I'm all dirty. And you just see all of the, I believe, pirates standing around her, backing up and just being like, wow. And once again, it's just like, oh, Nami has the advantage simply because she's super hot and men do not know how to stay focused around her at all. Which I suppose, why not? But it's very clear, like, she wasn't really intending to take part in this fight, but she's going to go ahead because I guess now I have to. You've forced my hand, as they say. And I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing her using her weather power, because it's sort of a bummer that she doesn't fight very much, since her weather powers are so fun to watch. They're very cinematic, and I just do kind of wish we got to see a little bit more of that. But, you know, because of her character, I get why they're doing it the way they're doing it. And the episode ends, the third one, with Hordy telling Luffy, like, you're not going to be able to save anybody. You're totally out of your depth here. And Luffy, we have, like, the smash cutting to each one of his friends. And he's like, the fuck I won't. I'm going to save all of them. And then I'm going to kick your ass. And that is the end of the episode. So I actually, like, really preferred these three compared to, I don't know if it was the last ones or the ones before. I think it was the ones before. That was the week where I was like, really like, oh, this is it. Come on. Like, we deserve better. They deserve better. But I think it's just getting to see a little bit more of the new tricks that Luffy has. And also, I just really like the princes. And I feel like I'm more invested in the story whenever they pop up, because their relationship with Shirahoshi and how much they care. I don't really care about Shirahoshi that much. I think Luffy's calling her Weepahoshi at this point, but I like the way they behave when they are around her. So that aspect of it, I'm a big fan of. I really hope Vanderdecken is actually taken off the board, because he is really boring and he just feels like a gnat flying around your head that you've got to deal with, you know? And I also really do like getting to see Zoro be contemptuous of another swordsman. I wonder if Zoro could fight with that, like, sickle-shaped blade. That thing was really weird looking. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up, but thank you, Michael, again, so much for commissioning this. Appreciate you a lot. Thank you, Florian, for being in the chat and feeding me information. Appreciate you as well. And I hope y'all are enjoying the coverage. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.